Go gently today. Don't hurry or think about the next thing. Walk with the quiet trees. Can you believe how brave they are? How kind. Model your life after theirs. Blow kisses at yourself in the mirror, especially when you think you've messed up. Forgive yourself for not meeting your expectations. You are human, not God. Don't be so arrogant. Praise fresh air, clean water, good dogs. Spin something from joy. Open a window, even if it's cold outside. Sit. Close your eyes. Breathe. Allow the river of it to pulse through eyelashes, fingertips, bare toes. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe until you feel your bigness, until the sun rises in your veins. Breathe until you stop needing anything to be different. We light this chalice to honor the memory of those who come before us, kindling flames of wisdom in dark times, willing to challenge orthodoxy even at great personal risk, giving us a legacy of freedom and a love of truth, a legacy that warms our hearts and lights our path. And we are now in the first Sunday of the Advent season, the 4 weeks that precede and lead up to Christmas Day, symbolizing a season of waiting and anticipation. Each Sunday at Eastrose, we will be lighting a new candle in celebration. The first candle, the one we light today, is known as the Prophet's Candle, and it symbolizes hope. Happy Advent. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Eastrose Fellowship. Everyone here in the chapel and online, a special welcome to first-time visitors. We are very glad that you are here. I'm Eric Chewy, your worship leader this morning. Our speaker is our own Eastrose community minister, Reverend Katie Larcell. And her sermon topic is, everybody knows what the sermon topic is, right? Magic mushrooms and you. Becoming a guide for those using psychedelic mushrooms. Now, let's all take a moment to greet each other. But first, let's turn, maybe get up if we need to, and look at the camera back there on the back wall and wave hello to our friends viewing the service at home.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. There you go, Therese. Time to be seated, please. I have a quick heads up here for anybody who's attending online, and that is if you would like to share a joy concern later in the service, please write it in the chat so that our staff can bring your words to us at that time. And now we have a land acknowledgement, and this is written by Reverend Katie Larcel. We naturally honor the people who come before us. Science respects Darwin and Galileo. Religious traditions revere their founders and saints. Countries reference the political leaders who guided them through difficult times. In the practice of psychedelics, today's service, indigenous people were the first to use these plants skillfully. In the Americas, psilocybin mushrooms are used in ceremonies by the Mazateca people of Central America. In Western North America, here in the States, peyote is a ceremonial plant. Western medicine and culture discovered these plants and initially used them without regard for their history and without ceremony and respect. Please join me in a moment of respect and acknowledgement for the history of these plants and the peoples who use them with such care. So we're having an opening hymn, which will be Open My Heart, and that's number 1013 in the teal hymnal. The words will be on the screen, and it's sung as a round, so Richard Curtis and Jean Wygant will be leading, and I believe you can give the instructions how it'll go.
Half and half, are we? So. We'll do this. This will be part one, and this will be part two, and you folks at home can be whatever part you want to be. And we'll sing the song through together. Barbara will play it once. You heard it in the prelude. She will play it once, and we'll sing it together, and then we'll sing it in a two-part round, so we'll sing it 2 times through. Let me tell you something. Open my heart to all that I seek, let me be part. There's no pause after the word seek, and you'll want to pause. So just heads up. Let's see what happens.
Stand up. Stand up.
Oh, yes.
Actually, it probably would be. That's perfect.
This again. The purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather here to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take up an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support the self-supporting church and its ministries. Here at Eastrose, we share half of our offering with a community nonprofit that we support. This month it is Our Just Future, formerly known as Human Solutions. Our Just Future helps homeless and low-income families build pathways out of poverty in East Multnomah County. If you attend online, you may donate by visiting our website and clicking the donate button, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. The gifts of the congregation will now be most gratefully received.
Oh, I gotta play. All right, never mind. Sorry.
So please remain seated and join one another in singing Find a Stillness, 352 in the gray hymnal, and the words will be on the screen.
Scared. We have only begun to live on this earth.
But the water is rising, the air is foul, the fires are burning, the storms are raging.
We have only begun to breathe in earth's beauty and breathe out earth's peace.
But the sky is heavy with the whirlwinds of our neglect.
We have only begun to listen to the wind, how it roars and whispers for our attention.
But the land has been laid waste, robbed, raped, and ruined.
We have only begun to reclaim the earth, to recognize it as the ground of our being.
But so many have been lost. Extinctions of our siblings are everywhere.
We are learning to again call them our brothers and sisters. We must learn to live a new way on the earth. Thank you, Eric. Why would a minister want to become a psilocybin guide? After all, psilocybin is a psychedelic compound. The federal government lists psychedelics as Schedule I substances, which means that the DEA considers it to, 1, have no currently accepted medical use in the United States, 2, a lack of accepted safety for use under medical supervision, and 3, a high potential for abuse. Whoa, bad news. This listing of psilocybin was done by the Nixon administration in the 1970s. Some of you remember the Nixon administration and its anti-drug stance. Well, at the time, for those of you who don't remember the Nixon administration, psychedelics had gotten a very scary reputation. Psychedelics, usually as LSD, and I'm going to pause for a minute and just make this distinction. I'll be using psilocybin and psychedelics, the two words, psilocybin and psychedelics. And psychedelics are a class of drugs. They're a class of plants. They have a certain kind of effect. Psilocybin is just one kind of psychedelic. So if you keep that straight, you'll understand things better. Psychedelics, usually as LSD, but also psilocybin and mescaline from peyote, were associated with hippie excess and carried a load of stories about the damage they could do. You could lose your mind and never be the same again. It was common knowledge that one normal young woman, and I remember this story, took LSD and jumped out the window to her death. Does anyone else remember that story? Yeah. Why take the chance? By the way, that story hasn't, no one can find it. No one can find where it happened. It's an urban myth. I stayed away from drugs then and really didn't spend any time thinking about psychedelics for most of my life. I wasn't intrigued or attracted. I was even probably kind of judgmental about them. I just thought it was kind of woo-woo. It's only been in the last 5 years that I found myself intrigued. It started when I heard these rumors about psychedelics' mysterious effectiveness. I'd heard about how terrible they were, but I hadn't heard about, and I've heard that they were, wonderful and blow your mind and all that, but I had never heard of them being effective. The first reports I heard about the new psychedelic renaissance, which is what we're going through now, a new psychedelic renaissance, came from Johns Hopkins research. Johns Hopkins is a premier institution in Baltimore that is a major university and a research center. They managed to patiently acquire all the permissions needed to do preliminary research on psilocybin, which is the psychedelic that comes from mushrooms. And it's the one that's been legalized here in Oregon. This was tough, as you may have noticed when I read what a Schedule I drug is. It wasn't considered by the government to have any potential. However, Johns Hopkins was very interested. Back when LSD, a laboratory psychedelic, was being passed out at parties in the 70s and 60s, it was also beginning to be used by psychiatrists to treat hard cases. It's a little-known fact that Bill Wilson, one of the main founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, credited his recovery to taking belladonna and having a spiritual experience. He tried to bring LSD therapy into Alcoholics Anonymous, but was overruled by his board. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. The listing of psychedelics as a controlled substance ended all those therapeutic uses, or at least the official ones. It stopped all the research in its tracks. And you may have noticed that right now we are in the middle of a mental health crisis. Mental health professionals are desperate for new tools. And here was something that had showed promise. So Johns Hopkins said, let's look at this. One of the first new studies by Johns Hopkins was on existential dread. People in the study had a terminal diagnosis, and they were afraid to die. In addition to dying now, they were filled with anxiety. They couldn't enjoy their final months or days. After they took psilocybin, a high percentage of the participants lost their fear of death. They felt at peace and could enjoy the last parts of their life. I was especially struck by what one participant said. He declared that he had felt comforted by God during the experience. The thing was, he was an atheist. And he was still an atheist after the psilocybin experience. He knew about the contradiction, and he was completely comfortable with it. This was intriguing to me. I also read about the 1962 Good Friday experiment. That was in 1962. Harvard divinity students took psychedelics in a double-blind experience, double-blind, I think that is, to investigate whether a drug could give you a truly mystical experience. The answer was yes. However, what intrigued me more was how these men who had a mystical experience in 1962, that was a long time ago, looked back on it. They characterized it as a highlight of their life. Yes. Now, I am not a young person looking for a high, a kick, or an adventure. And yet, I found myself getting very interested in accessing a spiritual experience that could help me reconcile my life and death here on this earth. I kept my ear to the ground, paying attention to the new research. In 2017, Michael and I, so 5 years, so in 2017, Michael and I accompanied fellow Eastrose congregant Larry Adams to Vancouver, BC to attend a conference on plant medicines. Plant medicines is kind of a code language for psychedelic substances that are grown, not produced in laboratories. Phyllis Adams came along for the fun of going to Vancouver, BC with us and didn't attend the conference. And she did have fun. The conference was eye-opening to us, to me. Yes, there was a certain amount of tie-dye in the audience, but there were all kinds of people there attending and presenting. The message I got from Vancouver was that this was a genuine movement with fresh energy. This new energy was being blown in through all this new research, and it was creating a broad-based movement of spiritual seekers and therapeutic practitioners. I felt by being there, I was making it just a little bit broader. After all, I was an ordained minister and in some ways representing mainstream religion. And I was interested in psychedelics because of its spiritual potential. I didn't meet anyone else there quite like that. You know I'm unique, right? In the Vancouver airport, on the way home from the conference, we ran into Tom and Sherry Eckert, who were traveling back to Oregon on the same flight. This husband and wife team were the faces and the driving force behind the psilocybin ballot measure in Oregon. I got a chance to talk with them then about all of it, the conference, the ballot measure, and the healing potential of psilocybin. I was so impressed by them. They appeared to be motivated by the very best reasons. They were psychologists. They wanted this tool available to treat their patients. Now, many of you listening voted for or against the legalization of psilocybin treatment in the 2020 election. You're forgiven for forgetting that maybe even which way you voted, because that was a big election and we were saving our democracy. But there was this mushroom psychedelic ballot measure, IP 109, on that ballot. It was a very unique ballot measure. It clearly stated that psilocybin would still be controlled in Oregon, but legal for certain uses. The measure only legalized one psychedelic, and that's psilocybin, the one with the broadest therapeutic possibilities. It passed by 55 to 44, which is a pretty high margin, especially these days. The measure takes effect on January 1, this coming year, January 1, 2023. On that date, psilocybin will be legal in Oregon, but you won't be able to buy it and take it home. I hate to tell you this, guys. It can only be ingested in a licensed centers, and participants cannot take it by themselves. They need to be accompanied by licensed professional guides. I thought, maybe I should become a guide. And, you know, I mulled that around for a long time. I had some time, though, because after it passed, there was 2 years of rulemaking while they're, working away on making this come out the way everyone has a vision for. But I wanted to tell you my 3 main reasons for why I kept considering it. Now, the first reason was because the role of a guide, it sounded like ministry. Guides are there as advisors and comforters as you make this spiritual journey. Now, here's what the guides do. First, the guide either a guide or a guide therapist meets with the participant before the experience is even scheduled. Together, they talk about what they can expect from this psychedelic experience. The guide answers questions and helps the participant set intentions. Because what we have discovered is that set and setting is important for the experience to have the healing properties that we're claiming. There is some screening that happens on both sides. The participants need to trust their guide. The guide needs to feel that the participant is a good match for the intensity of the experience. After they agreed that they are both compatible, then they set a date for the experience. Now, on the day of the experience, the guides stay with the participant as they ingest psilocybin. They remain with them during the whole time. The guide is there to keep the participant safe, both physically and mentally. A psilocybin experience takes around 6 hours. Participants listen, usually they listen to music, they might have, they might just be very internal, just kind of hunkered down on a couch, lying down. But they are experiencing something pretty profound. They see lights and hallucinations. Sometimes they experience their rebirth or their own death. Sometimes they talk to people or commune with God. The experience can be consuming, it can be intense, it actually always is intense, and it can even be frightening. So they need someone there with them. Finally, after the experience, often a day or two later, the participant meets with the guide, sometimes with a therapist, and reviews what happened. This is called integration, and it's a really important part of the therapeutic process. It's where the participant is allowed to make meaning with the help of an experienced guide or therapist. So being a guide looks like ministry to me. It also looks like psychological counseling, and the psilocybin experience, as it is regulated by the state of Oregon, doesn't look like an indigenous ceremony. It owes a lot to indigenous healers. I would say being a guide is part ministry, part counseling, and part shamanic healer. It is from the indigenous healers that Western practice learned how important it was to prepare people for the experience, keep them safe during the experience, and then follow up and then help them integrate the insights into their future life. So it might not look like an indigenous experience, but it is deeply informed by their knowledge. So it looked like ministry to me. And another reason I was intrigued by guiding is because of that connection between science and religion. I love science and I love spirituality. Historically, they are almost always in opposition to each other. Usually science is chasing religion. Science makes a discovery. Some of these precede us, but still there were important ones, such as Galileo observing that the earth revolved around the sun, or Darwin writing that humans were formed by natural selection, and people have to adjust their spiritual beliefs or resist the science. We have seen this happen over and over. But with this new research into psilocybin mushrooms and other psychedelics, science and spirituality are working together. In the studies, science treats the spirituality of the mushrooms with great respect. They have found that the intensity of the spiritual part of the psychedelic journey tracks with good outcomes. In other words, the more intensely spiritual your psilocybin experience is, the more healing your experience is. The more spiritual, the more healing. That always gives me goosebumps, actually. Finally, it just seems to fit my interest and my time in life. I'm a trained minister, but I have become increasingly picky about where I would work as a minister as I get older. I don't feel done with my ministry, but I want part-time. I don't want to move to another state. I didn't want to get another master's degree. This ministry kept calling me saying, hey, this might be for you. So finally I answered it. I am now enrolled in InnerTrek's guide training, which was started by Tom Eckert, one of the husband and wife team that we talked to in the Vancouver airport. Sadly, Tom's wife, Sherry, I don't know if you guys know this, but she died of a heart condition after the ballot measure passed. She was quite young, she was in her 50s. She's a beautiful and talented woman. The guide program is only 6 months long, not a 2 or 3 years master's degree. Did I say that already? And I will finish up this March. Now, I listed 3 reasons that it looks like ministry, science is working with religion, and my own time in life. But actually, I have a 4th. It's called saving the planet. So when people take psilocybin and they have a powerful experience, they are often healed of the affliction that they came in to heal. But from what I've read and experienced, with psilocybin. It really works to solve their psychological problem, almost as an afterthought, because it gives them a new vision of the world, which is more interconnected and holy. That vision stays with them and changes them. Now, I started this sermon with that shared reading that Eric and I did, and it was pretty brutal, wasn't it? I mean, some of you were probably going, I don't need to hear this. But the reason I put that in there is because we got a problem, people, and we all need to be working to solve it. It may be naive of me to think that I can save the world one psilocybin trip at a time, but we need to change our consciousness. And now you know my secret reason for becoming a psilocybin guide. As I said earlier, I'm not a young person looking for a high, a kick, or an adventure, but I guess I am an older person welcoming an adventure. And I believe I may have found one. So may it be. Let's sing together. We're going to sing Voice Still and Small, number 139 in the Gray Hymnal, and also
391.
what did I say? 391. Okay. It's number 391.
Should they stand?
Yes, you may stand.
This chalice was lit in honor of our legacy of challenges to orthodoxy, dedication to freedom, and love of sweet truth. As we extinguish this chalice and prepare to leave this place, carry that legacy with you and hold it, not pridefully or self-importantly, but with humble thanksgiving.
May the angels of light glisten for us this day. May the sparks of God's love, God's beauty, dance in the eyes of those we love. May the universe be on fire with presence for us this day. May the sun's rising grace us with gratitude, that the earth's breezes shine and its water breathe with spirit. Let heaven's winds stir the soil of our soul, and fresh awakenings rise within us, that the almighty angels of light glisten in all things this day. May they summon us to reverence. May they call us to love. Amen.
And this postlude is in honor of Advent.
Beautiful. Thank you, Barbara. Well, we have some announcements. We have some that are already in the pedals. I will just go through them a bit. Master storyteller Will Horniak is going to be back, and he's going to introduce us to myth, metaphor, and mystery. The masks of God, how imagination and creativity call to us as spiritual practice. I can't wait. And December 10th, I'm sorry, I'll do this in order. Winterfest is coming Saturday, December 3rd, and Cynthia is announcing, so next Saturday, Winterfest Tea and Bake Sale from 1 to 3. It's free. You don't have to reserve seats, but it is helpful so we have an idea for how many tables to set up. Sign-in sheet is in the lobby, just around next to that door there. There's currently room for many more, so talk to your friends and drop in on Saturday for a cuppa and a bite to eat. Maybe invite someone who hasn't been to church for a while. It would be lovely to just visit. If you can help us set up the tables and chairs and tea settings, we will be doing it earlier than originally planned. Please come on a Wednesday around 1 o'clock. It'd be fun to transform the chapel into a lovely tea spot. Finally, we could use more donations of food. Please see the sign-up sheets in the lobby. The event is free, but donations are appreciated. For the bake sale, please have cash or a check. And Cynthia Hopkins will be happy to answer any questions. She's not here today. So on the 10th, there's a family ministry, it's a Saturday, family ministry pizza and planning event in the Thatcher Room in back. It's at 1 p.m. So this sounds like a lot of fun. And also on the 10th from 1 to 4 is the final Eastrose cleanup day. And I guess you may maybe even give you some pizza. And a couple things that are not in the pedals. This coming Wednesday, there's going to be a hike to a place called the Bishop's Close, which is a park that belongs to the Episcopal Diocese of Portland, and is going to be sold in the very near, somewhere in the near future. So who knows if it'll still be open to the public. So meet at my house at 9 o'clock, and we'll go over there and carpool over there and take a look at the place. And just let me know by Tuesday night, and if you have any questions, ask me later. I have an announcement here on this sheet, and this is from Arcadia over there. Okay, and this is in Icelandic, so let's try this. Jökabókaflöð, which means literally a Christmas book flood in Icelandic. And this is going to be Christmas Eve. We bring lightly used books and some chocolate to share on Christmas Eve. The chocolate's very important. Please remember to bring this with you to the Christmas Eve service. I suppose they might be taking books earlier, but we don't really have a place to put them, so Christmas Eve a little bit early would be best. And finally, a mystery announcement. Out here in Narthex, to the left when you go out the door, is a set of pictures made by Lynn, right? And it's pictures of Winterfest past, Christmas tea, 1999. So there are some people there that you may know and some you may not know, or some who look kind of young, you may not recognize them. I'm not saying who that is. Not everyone has been identified in these pictures. There's some question marks. So if there are any old timers who might know some of these people, sometimes they're from behind or from a bad angle, let us know if you recognize anyone. In fact, there'll be a pen there if you want to put down their names. So that is it. Happy Advent. Thank you. Yes?
Remember the announcement for the congregational meeting on December 11th?
Oh, details, yes. Yes. Sorry about that. Thank you, Lynn. Congregational meeting, please be there, is going to be on the 11th at right after the service. Basically, that's 12 o'clock. And so we make some important decisions, including stuff like budgets and so on.